Hello everyone, and welcome back to World of Warships Blitz with Terry. In the last update, we had an expansion to the commander skills, and that was kind of necessary because the commander skill set hasn't really changed all that much except for the addition of more epic and legendary commanders with their respective special skills. But we now no longer end at level 12, which was previously the most achievable level that you could get. We now actually have 13, 14, and 15. These are called talents, and the main difference between them and the actual commander skills is that the talents come with activation conditions, whereas the skills are just passive buffs that are always active. So let's take a relatively quick look and see what's new here, how this all works, and how useful this is and how that changes gameplay in general. Obviously, there are going to be many different combinations of things that we can try out, but let's get a general overview. First of all, the sheer amount of commander XP that is necessary to unlock these. As you can see, the level 13, so the first talent level, takes 450,000 experience. Now, according to the patch notes, the commander at level 12 should start earning the Commander Special Free XP, whatever it's called now. It used to be Commander Elite XP. I think it's called Commander Free XP now. The thing you see there at the top right of the screen. But that doesn't seem to be working. I've reported that already. I don't know if it's a bug or if it just was wrongly worded in the patch notes, and it should be up to 15 that you earn these. But this is an immense amount of XP, because right now, just to level 13, that'll be 450,000. So if we level them up to 13, then the next one costs 600,000. So we're talking 1,050,000 XP. And if we're leveling up to 14, it's 750,000. So 1.8 million experience in total. That, I think, for the three talents is more than the total XP necessary to unlock up to level 12. Which, by the way, is not something you'll actually achieve by grinding a commander through a full ship line. Unless you... I'm not sure if you pay for the retraining, but if you don't pay gold for the retraining on the new ship, then I'm reasonably certain you end up in about-ish level 10 or so, reasonably, when you grind through a line. So this is an insane amount, and the patch notes mentioned that the idea seems to be, at least from my understanding, that you would be using the Commander Free XP, because that is now cross commanders. So all your commanders are generating this, and you would be using that to boost your talent unlocking. But if that doesn't start until level 15, then sheesh. Yeah. Anyway, so new talents. So how did it work? Well, let's look at Franz von Hipper, because for him I've already unlocked and assigned this. But there are effectively 3 trees that we can use. At level 13, whatever talent you choose at level 13 decides the rest of the tree for 14 and 15. So if you pick the first item, as you can see in red here, you have a set of talents for 14 and 15 that you can choose. If you pick the second item, you get a different set, and you pick the third item, you've got a different set again. So the level 13 talents are very essential that you're making the right choice there, because they determine what you're going to be getting in 14 and 15. So let's have a look at the first roll then. The first in red here is the Tactical Shooter talent. This activates upon detecting 3 enemies, and it gives you 3% main battery firing range. So you could say, okay, I'm in a battleship. I would love to get that, but yeah, this isn't going to really work that well, because if you're in a battleship, it's very unlikely that you be the one detecting enemies, because mostly it's going to be your screens, so your destroyers or your carrier that's going to be detecting. For a carrier, this doesn't make any difference. So for him, it wouldn't be a great choice either. So this sounds more like a scout cruiser destroyer sort of skill. That would make sense. And if we're looking at what that unlocks, that also seems to be playing the same direction. So we've got the choice in 14 now between causing 30% of your max HP with main battery damage. So not just damage, but main battery damage. So for a stealth destroyer, it's not that easy. But for low HP ships, because this is your max HP, not the enemy's max HP, your max HP in amounts of damage with your guns that you have to cause. So if you have relatively low max HP to begin with, and you're starting to cause a fair amount of damage with guns, then this should not be very hard to achieve, and that gives you another 3% surface detection. Next up, you have the choice, and yeah, these are exclusive choices. So an alternative choice would be whenever you destroy something, you get more maneuverability and speed, which is great. And the last one is weird because this activates when you're capping. So when you're taking a cap, which means this is only useful in domination battles, because if you're taking a cap in a standard battle, it'll end. So this only makes sense in domination, and this seems to be mostly fighter, so mostly carrier focused. I'm not entirely certain what the engage and disengage range is. Is that for when you're hitting enemy fighters? Does this help with not getting your fighters captured? But then again, you're in a carrier. You're not going to be capping until the very end of the game. So not entirely certain how this works or what this is for. But this tree is also, by the looks of it, quite a bit for carriers, which again makes it relatively unsatisfactory that you get main battery firing range, which in a carrier really doesn't help you. Lastly, in the third row, level 15, if you get 10 torpedo hits on an enemy ship, you get minus 6% torpedo reload time, which is nice, and 3% aircraft speed. So for ships that reload torpedoes reasonably quickly, or for destroyers in general, this is not a bad skill to have. And obviously for carriers as well, because you can get 10 torpedoes on target relatively quickly, and then you get your aircraft faster, which is a good thing. The second one in this row would be after causing fire or flooding for 7 times, which is doable. Again, destroyers, carriers, scout cruisers come to mind here. And this increases your main battery shell velocity. So for gunboat destroyers, this is like a really nice sort of little set of skills that they can relatively easily unlock. 3% torpedo speed and 1% bomb penetration capability. So if you're dropping your bombs and you don't get full penetrations, then this makes it a little bit easier, although 1% does not sound like an awful lot. So let's say, and I'm completely hypothetical here because I have no numbers, just as an example. Let's say your bomb has 50 millimeters of penetration and you're dropping on a battleship that has 110 millimeter deck armor. After this, you get 50. If it's rounded up, you get 51. You get an extra millimeter of penetration, so it's not going to do an awful lot. Even if it was 100 millimeters of penetration, you would not get you wouldn't get any extra that would massively help you with getting through 110 millimeter deck plating. But it might do something in a ditch. And lastly, you can unlock this by doing 2 assists. So a kill assist is if you've been shooting an enemy ship but somebody else sinks it. It's relatively it's not uncommon, but 2 of them is definitely not something you're going to be doing early on in the battle. So this is giving you 2% extra chance of fire and 2% chance of floods with torpedoes. Now these are likely not going to be percentage points, so again it's not going to make a huge difference, but these are unlockable talents in this tree. So this seems to be, and we are going to be having different builds, and people are going to figure this out, and most definitely not going to be final with it. Just sort of from the intent, seems to be so obviously some carrier stuff, but also like just some destroyer skills and some scout cruiser skills. Battleships probably not so much. The second tree, the green one here, starts with 35 main battery hits and gives us 4% battery traverse. which is neat. Again, feels more like a cruiser thing, because with the battleship, 35 hits with main battery means you're basically halfway through the battle anyway. But what does it unlock? Now, here's an interesting one, because if you can get the first strike off, that gives you +1 usage on all skills. This feels perfect for ships like a Jinan or something, where you can relatively reasonably either jump somebody early on a destroyer, or you can get in range early on and get the first kill in with torpedoes, and then you get an extra skill point on everything. So that sounds pretty good. The armor piercer, again, this activates upon causing damage equal to 35% of your max HP. So here again we have that theme that the lower your HP in the ship, the easier it is to activate this, and it gives 2% main battery damage and 2% bomb penetration damage. So this would probably work also for Dutch cruisers in some way. And the third one we have here is once you cost 18% of your max HP with fire and flooding damage. Again, this is for a low HP ship like a destroyer or a scout cruiser, relatively easy to achieve here. And that gives you 3% dispersion. For some reason, it gives you 3% secondary dispersion, which would be kind of nice to have on a German ship, but it's very unlikely that you're going to be doing fire and flooding damage with the German ship. And for the carriers, it's obviously not making sense, except they get the bomber attack dispersion. So this feels very, very uncomfortable for American carriers on the enemy team. Like, imagine, they're bad enough with their dive bombers that they are, but imagine the bloody things can easily cause 18% fire flooding damage if they're skilled players of their own HP, which isn't going to be that much. And then they get an extra 4% dispersion on the bombers. So, eek, fun and games. Lastly, in the third row, we have the sniper skill. That's for 5 citadels. 5 citadels is achievable, but it's unlikely to be something that happens sort of in the first half of the battle. So this is again a late game skill. It gives you 6% surface detection, and most obviously, I mean, it could work for certain outliers. So this could work for ships like the Elbing, for example. You'd get 6% surface detection and 12% shell velocity. So your guns turn into rail guns here. So this could either be battleships with big guns that can get the 5 citadel hits in before the game ends, or this could be for ships like I said, like the Elbing, which have extremely high penetration guns and can score citadels relatively reliably. And then they get basically better surface detection, which for a battleship is not a huge thing, but for an Elbing is quite useful. And they get better shell velocity. The next one on this one would be damage equal to at least of 30% of all enemy ships' total HP. So this is sum up the HP of all enemy ships and cause 30% of that. That is a fair amount, but it gives you 4% main battery reload time, which is very nice, and 6% torpedo reload time. So, and again, for the carriers, it's going to be aircraft speed. And lastly, if you get a double strike, which is relatively rare, let's be honest, it's not something you get frequently, then you get a timed 20-second timed event. The other ones are passive buffs with an activation requirement. This one is an active buff which is timed, which gives us 8% reload time, 6% ship speed, and faster aircraft preparation time. So for a carrier, again, this might be easier to achieve, because for a carrier you can relatively easily, see 2 low health targets, get yourself a double strike, activate this, and then get the faster aircraft time out. But then again, it's a 20-second timed, and 20 seconds for a battleship probably means a single salvo. So it's not huge. Lastly, the third one. So yeah, the second tree feels a lot battleshipy. The third tree is completely dependent on, is completely buffing secondaries. So again, you need to do damage equal to 30% of your own HP, but then you get secondary buffs. And they're good secondary buffs. So this is basically a tree that's completely for German ships because not many other lines are going to be secondary focused, except for with a couple of outliers here, like an Atlantico, for example. But yeah, this is a relatively useless skill for anything that isn't an Atlantico or a German battleship, because they just don't have any secondaries or not going to be using them very much. So this is then more an unlock. But what does it unlock? In level 14, we get a chance, if we do, again, German battleships here, get special skill tree. I'm not complaining, I like German battleships, but still feels a little bit unfair. Unless we are going to get more battleships that are secondary focused, that is. Hit enemy ships with secondary batteries 35 times, you get an extra 1%. So this is the exploit weakness. So you get another, it's basically an unlockable exploit weakness on top of it. The next one we've got activates after you've used 3 either damage control or repairs. So it could be 1 repair kit, 2 damacons or similar, and then you get minus 2.5% received damage from torpedoes and shells, which is not a bad thing, really. That's something you'll trigger relatively easily, and but definitely a sort of second half of the game skill. The third one being an activation after destroying a ship while being on fire, which is something that you are used to in a German battleship. So again, this kind of makes sense, and that gives you a minus 1.5% chance of getting set on fire, flooding again. That is, I would guess, completely marginal and irrelevant, because like we've already messed around with fire flooding protection, and like a 1.5% modifier is really not going to make any kind of difference whatsoever to being on fire. So I'm not so sure about that one. In 15, we have, and I think this is weirdly worded, but this happens when you cause 60% of your total HP and receive 60% of your total HP. So again, a ship skill that is somewhat achievable in the second half of the battle by German battleships, and this gives you 1% main battery penetration and 1% secondary penetration. Again, 1% penetration, we talked about this with the bombs earlier, is probably not an awful lot. So I doubt that it makes a huge difference. The next one is much more interesting, because this is the last stand skill. In order to activate it, you need to be below 15% of your total HP. So for a German battleship, that means being reasonably low, and then you have to destroy a ship. But if you manage that, you effectively get a free, I almost argue that's a free super heal. You get you get it activated for 20-second runtime, and you recover 1.43% of your HP per second, and everything gets a 4% damage buff. So this is a really interesting skill if you can manage to pull that off, and it might also have some interesting implications on how you're playing, because you need to kind of time your own heals if you have one available to see if you can. You need to know what your threshold is, and if you can manage to be below it while you're getting a kill without going down yourself, you might be able to get that skill activated. And the last one is if you are it's basically if you're getting a Confederate award, you get 3% reload buff, 3% fire chance, 2% reload buff for 2% flooding with torpedoes, and those sort of things. So that for German battleships and battle cruisers might also be an interesting one. So there are a fair amount of combinations out here that you can use, and I think we'll figure out what the good ones are. But the first tree is seems to be more geared towards things like destroyers and maybe scout cruisers. The second one is more a cruiser battleship tree, and the last one seems to be a special one for German battleships and battle cruisers, and maybe future lines that are more secondary focused. So right now, I just to try that out, I've set up Franz von Hipper on the Bismarck. The legendary commanders don't get any special skills here. It's the same. The talents is the same for everybody, but I've set him up on the Bismarck, and I have the frenziness skill selected here. So if I get 30% of my total HP as damage, then I get the reload time and range on the secondaries increased. I've got the elementalist, so on 35 secondary hits, I get a free exploit weakness, and I've got the last stand one, and but I don't think I've managed to trigger that in the game that we're about to watch. But let's see this in action a little bit and see how that looks like, and talk a bit more about what kind of impact that can have on your gameplay. In this battle, we are in a domination match, bottom tier, but there's only one actual tier 9 on the enemy team, and that is the enemy Essex. So we are facing Essex, Atlantico, Nebraska, Takao, and Maya. I don't know what the difference is between the ARP Maya and the regular Maya, but it's Japanese, it'll have torpedoes. It's a fair assumption to make. So the first thing we probably want to get done is 35 secondary hits, because that gives us more or less the free exploit weakness. But then again, exploit weakness really requires the enemy ship to be on fire or flooding for us to do additional things. Anyway, not really going to change too much. First, have a quick look. There is the Spanish cruiser, so I'm going to stick with that, hoping for some assistance with AA. And we're going to head towards A-Cup. I'm not sure where the bot Öland is heading to, but we'll keep an eye on the carrier. Generally, if you're playing in a game where there's a carrier, you have to play a little differently. So I will try my best to stick close to the cruiser, so we can combine our AA bubbles, hope for some fighter support from the friendly carrier, and just generally try not to be separated, especially in a German battleship, because you are easy prey for carriers, especially American carriers. They're quite notorious for setting many fires. We've got the 2 bot destroyers currently spotted, but I have nothing else really to shoot at. There was one of the cruisers spotted earlier, so we'll see. I'm just unload at it because I have nothing better to shoot at for now. So let's get rid of it. But I'm pretty sure we're going to see 1 or 2 of the Japanese. Yep, there's the Maya. So let's dispatch and there's the Takao. So the Ignacio Allende there has been a little bit aggressive, and he is going after the bot destroyer. At least he's bow in, but he's now bow tanking 2 Japanese cruisers, which is not something you necessarily want to do. So I'm just going to get myself into secondary range. I'm going to use my secondary overload here, but I do have to stop now because I'm sticking with the friendly cruiser for AA support. And I have to stop now because there are going to be torpedoes in the water. So I've already got the sonar running, and yep, there they come. Oh no, these are carrier torpedoes, but they are focusing very heavily on the friendly Spanish cruiser, and I am going to try and move forward to get back onto secondary range, because I am still at 11 secondary hits. But yeah, my Spanish cruiser is going to go down by the looks of it. He should have probably retreated, backed out. I would have recommended backing out of the capture circle more, but he's gone, which means I now have to deal with these 2. There comes a set of torpedoes, but as a single spread, so I'm not sure if that was Takao. Obviously I am on fire, which is nothing new, but the Maya is relatively, there comes the double fire, is relatively aggressive, so I'm already going to assume that he's going to go for a torpedo run. So slamming in reverse, and sonar up. Yep, there come the torpedoes. They were quite obvious, but he's getting hammered by the secondaries now, and I'm getting there. Where are we at? The 9. That should be enough. Yeah, there come the fireworks. So now I have the free. Oh come on! That torpedo did not hit and did not just cause a flood. Wargaming, go home, you're drunk. Okay, Maya is done. That torpedo clearly passed my bows. Anyway. Great, so now we have a permaflood on our hands, nothing we can do about it, but There's a Takao, which obviously is a torpedo threat. Takao's torpedo angles are not as terrible, but yeah, he's going to try and burn me down as well. So we're going to use the island to defend ourselves against torpedoes here. We are holding 2 of the capture circles, but we're a ship behind. And I am getting relatively close to... Well, I'm running a little low on hit points, so there might have been an opportunity here to use the... Yep, there come the Takao torpedoes. You just gotta anticipate when they're firing them, honestly. But that was only one spread. There's another one in the water. We're an inch forward. Up there comes the second spread. He has sent it. Down the same path, so these were easy to avoid. Now I'm just gonna have to watch out with any further fires. But Takao now should be on torpedo reload on his starboard side, which means as long as he doesn't turn around, there's no further torpedo threat from the Takao. And yeah, I'm kind of done with being on fire. Although again here, you could have argued that the tactical play would have been to let that fire burn, because I've got a heal coming on off cooldown. It would have actually been the better play. This is just a reaction. So I'm assuming the Takao is going to turn around for getting his port torpedoes away. So I'm already slowing down and I'm already healing. What I could have done here is let the fire burn, get my hit points down to 15%, and then blast the Takao away, because I'm reasonably certain that I can get him. Because now I'm getting a perma-fire, and while I have killed the Takao, I didn't get the super heal. So this is one of those instances where you actually need to change the way that you're playing. And yeah, there come the expected torpedoes. That's why he was turning. That's why I'm already reversing. And there comes the carrier. And now my Damekon's on cooldown, and I'm down to 17,000 hit points. So we are still leading in points, although we're a kill behind. So right now I have to survive. And again, in a German battleship, against an American carrier, there's the obvious fire. Double or triple? Double. But I do have the Damacon ready, so that's gone. But now there comes... Now he knows that I've damage controlled. Friendly carrier sends fighter support. Much appreciated. But now there come the torpedo planes. And he's going to go for the permaflood. And that is going to kill me. So I'm going to have to turn into the planes and vary my speed and course. There he comes again, full on reverse, hard right. He's committed to the drop, and we can dodge everything except one torpedo, which means we get to live, because it wasn't a flood. And that means while the Atlantico has taken the central cap, if the friendly carrier can take down the Atlantico, we might have this on one cap. We're going to try and help, but well done, Tayo. He's got the Atlantico. There is still another battleship out there somewhere, but we're now almost 100 points ahead, and with a minute to go and us still holding one capture circle, that is, I think, manageable as long as the Tayo survives. So he better start running now, because if there's still a battleship out there, a minute can be enough to finish him off. Nice, relatively good on hit points, and yes, he is moving. So well played, Tayo. Good job. Yeah, so all in all, talents are going to be a nice little addition, but it's going to be hard work to unlock them, and it's going to have slight impacts on how you play. So like you've just seen there, and I know where the carrier is. I can see his planes. So give a couple blind shots to see if I can hit him. It's going to change. Yeah. I see you. Just have to track the planes back. It's gonna make a little difference to how you play. So it can help to be aware of the triggers and play accordingly once you've managed to unlock the respective talents, which is going to take a while. But once I think you have several commanders up at level 15 and they're starting to earn the free XP, given that it's no longer commander bound, you can then use that to level up other commanders relatively easily. So yeah, I'm quite happy with the addition. I think there are going to be some interesting combinations in there. Some seem to be a bit more useful than others, but it's definitely been needed to have a bit of a refresh on the commander system. So if next up we could drop the gold requirement for retraining, then that'd be much appreciated. I'll keep lobbying for it. Anyway, that's it for me today. Thanks everybody, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.